Well, look at the terrible clutter of lines that I have down here. I've painted in the foliage. It needs highlighting. It's painted in, but it's not finished, the foliage. And obviously I haven't touched the trunks yet, but I'm leaving them for now. But I'd like to get the foreground a little bit organized. So let's play with that for a moment and see how that could play out. Switch to a bigger brush because frankly I've been using a pretty small brush for all the strokes in the foliage. I would like to put some life into this thing. And one way of doing it is by using stronger strokes, and one way of doing that is by using a larger brush. So we just do a pattern, maybe a pattern that just comes off the bottom of the painting. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Try to keep it somewhat interesting, you know. Don't have to get fancy. I know I said I was going to stay fairly abstract near the bottom. I'm going to try to stick with that notion. It all does this. I don't want that to be just continuous. I would like to break it with, you know, even this line. Even that little change of direction, it does make a difference. Okay. I'm using ultramarine blue and raw umber. Let's just back off on the ultramarine blue for the moment and go with a little more raw umber. Maybe not down here so much. Well, you know, I will do a little bit, but it's already partly worn off the brush, so I don't have to worry too much about it. Up here, we've gone to a little more raw umber as well, but I'll add a little bit of yellow ochre and a bit more white. Okay, just hitting that rock in a little sort of more brazen way. One stroke there, a bit there. See, I have this dipping so strongly, I'd like to counter it a little bit with a bit of a curve there. So we'll do that. And we'll even be bold enough to run that design off the edge of the painting a little bit. Okay. Excuse me. All right. That might be it for the grays. I'm not going to likely finish the foreground right now. I'm just trying to get it organized more than anything. palette of white. You know, I've got purple here and pink. I'm not. I haven't got to the point in the painting where I'm going to. I think I can make this pop more. I just haven't arrived there yet. So I'd like to get the painting covered. I'll put some strokes in the foreground, and after that, of course, I'll paint the trunks. That'll have everything in relative perspective. I don't mean drawing wise. I just mean the juxtaposing of colors to each other. So that's part. You know, it's the same as when I want to get rid of the white. Now I want to get rid of the dark. Not all of it, but most of it, and certainly this mass here. So what do I do? We have a line of green across here. We have green here and here. Let's introduce a bit of green to the foreground as well. I've been using cobalt blue and burnt sienna and white in various degrees for the foliage on the trees. Now I'd like to go to ultramarine blue and some yellow ochre. Not burnt sienna, just yellow ochre. Slightly different green again. To bring this green so that we have some green down here as well. Now the lines are this way, so how about if we put a few brush strokes in opposing the lines? Think that'll work? I bet it will. I've heard it can. Again, designs. I'm not worrying about which way the lawn's been mowed. I'm just putting in some lines and designs, and that's good enough. In fact, it's not good enough. It's better than good enough. It's preferable. Okay, that brings the green down here. Maybe we put a bit of green here as well. Okay, I think that works. Okay, more of the same. Ultramarine blue, yellow ochre. A little heavier on the ultramarine blue now. Because I think maybe what we should have is a bit of a darker mass here. Okay, just so it has less attention drawn to it. Yeah, I don't like the strong line there. It's a small painting, you know, again, if it was a large painting. The difference between a small and a large painting is not just bigger brush strokes. because you have to bear in mind that people will view these things from different distances. Okay. I think I'm happy to. I think I'm happy to put a bit of that same slightly darker green in here. All right. Okay. The reason I am continuing with some of this green is because I would like to introduce some purple into the foreground, as I mentioned earlier. But I don't want a band of purple going right across the painting, you know? I'd like to stop it somewhere. So I think that I've left enough now. That we can do this. It might be a bit light, I don't know. Again, pick your fights. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Okay, let's just stop that for the moment and give the brush a quick clean. It doesn't have to be new car clean. It doesn't have to be super clean at all. Because I'm not after my highest chroma right now. I'm just going to try to, in a way, help unify the painting, unify this with this by putting a little bit of purple. So let's go with a little bit of ultramarine blue and just alizarin crimson, a bit of white. Not necessarily going to go as red as the background is. In fact, I don't want to. I just want it to be, I want the colors to be related, not identical. Heavier on the red. Sorry, the alizarin crimson. And a little more white. That might be a bit much. We'll see. I can play with it. Yeah, I think that's a bit heavy. Heavy on the white, actually. Again, I could use a smaller brush, and I would, on one hand, it would be kind of wise to do that, but like for ease of application, you know, of paint application, but somehow you just end up with a more attractive look, in my opinion, if you don't fall into that trap of dropping to a smaller brush if you don't really need to. Excuse me. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre to this as well. That'll warm up the combination without going too high in chroma. Be careful, Phil. Okay, a little more red. Okay, I think it may get it'll probably get a few touches here and there, but I don't know that I want to. I don't know that I want to get a whole lot fussier. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I like the feel of a study. I love the feel of a study. They're little jewels. They kind of sparkle, and I quite like that. Okay, those rocks are floating because they're quite high value against the low stuff in front of it, the low value stuff in front of it. So let's maybe continue with a little bit higher value there. Showing that there is some light spilling across the foreground, you know, maybe not a lot, but a little bit. And every time you lay your brush on there, you end up with each stroke diminishes in value or chroma depending on what you're laying in. Switch back to my smaller brush here and make the lines on the back side of these rocks a little more crisp. Otherwise they will not appear to be in front of the colors I've laid in there. So, how are we here? I think we're still heading in the right direction. And now I'm probably going to be foolish and put in a couple of small strokes that probably aren't even necessary. Or helpful. Okay, so I'll stop. Okay, time to stand up, back up, turn around, have a look. Yeah, you know, foreground I think is well organized now. I'll do a little more work to it, but really, for the most part, it's coming. Paint those trunks in, and then we'll have everything. We'll have everything at a point that we can gauge what we want to do with the rest of the painting. All right, we will talk to you very soon.